2 hours after burying my daughter, I walked into Dr. Fraser's office and found my husband cornering her, gripping a flash drive. The report she shoved into my hand proved Leora was never sick. He poisoned her for insurance. I swore to strike back, but nothing prepared me for what happened next. Before I tell you the full story, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from so this story reaches more people. My name is Sierra Langston, and until that night, I believed my life had already been destroyed once. Losing Leora shattered something I didn't think could break twice. She was 7, vibrant, always covered in paint from the sunsets. She loved drawing, always twirling in her hallway like the world was her stage. People told me she was in a better place, but there is no better place than a mother's arms. No heaven soft enough to justify the coldness of her absence. After the funeral, our home in Northview, Oregon felt like a mausoleum. My mother was assembling food no one would touch. My older sister answered the door to waves of condolences, and my husband, Darius Langston, sat slumped in his black suit, looking like grief had hollowed him from the inside. Everyone praised him for being strong, for never leaving Leora's side. I swallowed those words as truth because I had no reason then to doubt him. We'd been together since college. He worked in pharmaceutical logistics and earned well. He'd been deeply involved in Leora's care, insisting on the best specialists, and that's how Dr. Eloise Fraser entered our lives. She was polished, brilliant, respected, a pediatric hematologist everyone trusted. Darius knew her from university. They'd remained acquaintances, nothing more, or so I thought. When Leora first developed bruising and fatigue, it was Darius who urged we see Eloise immediately. She fast-tracked visits, oversaw every test, held my shaking hands through every breakdown. She was the one who told us Leora had a rare blood disorder, aggressive, nearly impossible to treat. And I believed her. But hints flickered even in the darkest nights. Strange medication bottles rotated too frequently. The dosage instructions never matched what I'd read about similar conditions. Leora whispered to me that Daddy's special medicine tasted like metal and made her stomach burn worse than the hospital treatments. Darius insisted second opinions would delay care, that Eloise knew exactly what she was doing. He became defensive whenever I questioned decisions. But grief fogs the mind. Exhaustion numbs suspicion. I worked overtime shifts at River Point General while also living in the hospital. My entire existence narrowed to one desperate hope, that my daughter might survive. Then, on the night when the smell of funeral lilies was still clinging to my clothes, my phone rang. "Sierra!" Dr. Fraser whispered, her voice trembling. "Come to my office right now. Don't tell anyone. Not even your husband. Especially not Darius. This is dangerous. Please." Before I could ask anything, she hung up. A coldness, sharper than grief, spread through my chest. Something was wrong. Something I had ignored for months. I changed out of my funeral dress, grabbed my purse, and walked downstairs. Darius looked up, his red eyes soft with what I now know was practice performance. "Where are you going?" he asked. "I need copies of the death certificate," I lied. "Insurance stuff." "I'll drive." "No," I cut in, forcing calm. "I need a moment alone." My mother bit her lip, worried, but I kissed her cheek and left before anyone could stop me. The medical building parking lot was nearly empty. Most offices were closed, lights off. Only one door glowed faintly on the 4th floor. Eloise's. I made my way down the silent hallway, every step heavier than the last. The door was cracked open. Inside, Eloise looked nothing like the composed physician I had known. Her hair was a mess, makeup streaked from tears. Her hands shook uncontrollably. But what froze me wasn't her appearance. It was Darius. He stood inches from her, blocking her escape, shoulders tense, voice low and razor-sharp. In his hand, a flash drive. Something important. Something he would do anything to protect. "You're going to hand over every file," he hissed. Every copy. Right now. I can't do this anymore, Eloise cried. She was a child, Darius. Shut up, he snapped, and it was a voice I'd never heard from him. Cold. Dangerous. Calculated. I gasped without meaning to. He spun around. For one awful heartbeat, he didn't look guilty or shocked. He looked annoyed, like I was an inconvenience. But then his expression morphed instantly into the grief-stricken mask he'd worn all day. Sierra, he breathed. Baby, what are you doing here? I looked past him to Eloise, whose face had drained of color. She was terrified, not of me, but of him. What is going on? I whispered. Why were you two meeting here? Why did she call me? Darius stepped forward, palms raised. Sweetheart, I know this looks strange. I came to get the medical records for the insurance paperwork. Stop lying to her. Eloise cried, voice cracking. Tell her the truth, Darius. Tell her what you did. His eyes sliced toward her, murderous. Before he could silence her, she reached into her coat with trembling fingers and shoved a folded document into my hand. Take this, she whispered. Read it, and run. Darius lunged, but I stumbled back, clutching the paper. Enough! I yelled. Someone tell me right now what this is. Darius forced a sympathetic expression. Sierra, you're upset. Let's go home. No, I said. Not until I know why she's apologizing to me. Eloise choked on a sob. Because your daughter didn't die from any disorder. She was healthy. The truth is... Camille, shut up. Darius's voice had dropped to something venomous. Eloise stared at me with broken eyes. He poisoned her. The world spun. My hand gripped the doorframe to steady myself. What? The word scraped from my throat. Eloise sobbed. The medication, it wasn't treatment. It was chemotherapy for a disease she never had. I faked the diagnosis. He paid me. I thought he only wanted the insurance payout. I didn't know he'd really let her die. Darius moved toward me again. Sierra, don't listen to her. Don't touch me. I screamed, stumbling into the hall. His face hardened. The mask dropped completely. You don't know what you're getting into, he warned. Be careful, Sierra. It wasn't concern. It was a threat. I turned and ran. Down the hall, down the stairwell, through the lobby, out into the cold night. I didn't breathe until I was locked inside my car. Hands shaking. I unfolded the document. A lab report. Leora's. Normal results. No disease. Nothing to match what we'd been told. On the back, in Eloise's handwriting, Sierra. Leora was healthy. Check the pills at home. He poisoned her slowly. $3 million insurance policy. Beneficiary Darius. He paid me to fake the diagnosis. I have proof. But he knows. Be careful. He's dangerous. Yef. The scream that tore out of me felt like it came from the bones of every mother who ever lost a child. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Something sharp, cold, and unbreakable. I wasn't just grieving anymore. I was going to make him face everything. My hands were still trembling when I dropped the lab report onto the passenger seat. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel, breathing hard, trying to make sense of the impossible words staring back at me. Leora wasn't sick. She was poisoned. Poisoned by the man I had loved for 12 years. The man who had held her during every treatment, kissed her forehead every night, wiped her tears when she whimpered from pain he caused. Darius didn't just betray me. He murdered our daughter. A sound ripped out of me, ragged, shaking, something between a sob and a scream. I wanted to drive to the police right then, storm into the station and throw the lab report into someone's hands. But Eloise's warning echoed in my skull. Be careful. He's dangerous. Everything about Darius changed in that office. His eyes, his voice, the way he looked at me. He had already killed once. He had already silenced Eloise once. If he knew I had proof, he wouldn't hesitate to make sure I never spoke again. I couldn't go home. I couldn't confront him. I needed somewhere safe. Someone who wouldn't question me. Someone who understood secrets and technology and danger. Only one name came to mind. Xavier. My cousin. A cybersecurity analyst with a past full of skills he didn't exactly learn in classrooms. I grabbed my phone and dialed him. He answered on the second ring. Sierra? I've been calling you. Where are you? My voice cracked. Zav. I need help. Now. Please don't ask questions on the phone. Can you meet me at your apartment? There was a beat of silence. Then steady and certain. Yeah. Come straight here. I drove with numb hands, wiping tears that wouldn't stop falling. Every shadow felt like Darius following me. Every car behind mine felt like a threat. By the time I reached Xavier's apartment on the east side of Northview, my entire body was shaking. He opened the door before I could knock. Sierra, holy hell, you look, come in. He guided me to the couch. Tell me what happened. I handed him the lab report. He read the front. Then he flipped it over. His eyes widened, darkened, then filled with something cold and furious. Sierra, he whispered. This says Darius, your husband. Yes. My voice cracked. He killed her. He killed Leora. Xavier didn't hug often, but he pulled me into his chest like he needed to keep me from falling apart. I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. When the tears slowed, he pulled back, jaw clenched like he was holding back his own storm. What do you want to do? He asked. I need proof, I whispered. Real proof. Evidence he can't erase, twist, or destroy. Eloise said she had more, audio files, something, but she's terrified of him. He cornered her tonight before I got there. Xavier nodded slowly. We're not going to the police with just this. Not yet. If he finds out, he'll run. Or worse. We need to get into your house. His laptop. His phones. Everything. I can't go home tonight, I said. If he sees me, if he hears anything in my voice. You won't go home, he said. Not until we know exactly who we're dealing with. He began pulling out equipment, devices I didn't recognize, software he used for clients, but also clearly beyond anything legal. As he explained how we'd access Darius's private accounts, clone his phone, and track his digital footprint, a terrible thought hit me. What about Eloise? I asked. She said she had evidence. She said she was going to the police tomorrow morning. Xavier hesitated. If she confronts him or contacts anyone tonight, he'll know she talked. A chill ran through me. She said she had copies. She also said Darius knows. He met my gaze. Sierra, if he's willing to kill Leora for money and threaten you tonight, what do you think he'll do to the doctor who helped him fake everything? I swallowed hard. We need to move fast. 2 hours later, as Xavier was finishing a clone of Darius's cloud storage, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My chest tightened. I answered. Mrs. Langston, a male voice said. This is Detective Merrick from Northview Police. I'm calling regarding Dr. Eloise Fraser. My blood froze. Yes. My voice barely existed. I'm sorry to inform you. She was found deceased in her office less than an hour ago. Apparent suicide. No pulse. No breath. No heartbeat. My phone slipped through my fingers. Xavier caught it. He listened silently, jaw tightening, then hung up. They killed her, he said quietly, or made it look like she killed herself. My vision blurred. She was going to turn over evidence tomorrow. She didn't kill herself. No, he said. She didn't. I stood, pacing, my hand shaking uncontrollably. Darius was cleaning up loose ends. If Eloise was dead, he was eliminating threats. And that meant, I'm next, I whispered. Xavier stood too. Not if we stay ahead of him. But we need to move tonight. Move how? We get into your house while he's asleep. You still have your keys? Yes. Then we're going. Now. I didn't trust my legs, but I followed him to the car. We drove back toward my neighborhood, turning onto the street only long enough for me to see the lights inside my house. The living room was lit. He was awake. I sent Darius a text. I'm staying at Mom's tonight. Needed time alone. I'll see you tomorrow. His reply came seconds later. Thank God. I was worried. I love you. Get some rest. The message made bile rise in my throat. We waited 30 minutes. The lights went off. Another 30 minutes. No movement. At 2:14 a.m., Xavier whispered, "Let's go." We parked 3 houses down and slipped into the side door that opened into the laundry room. The house was silent. Too silent. I could hear Darius's faint snoring from the master bedroom. Where first? Xavier murmured. Leora's room, I whispered. Entering her room was like reopening a wound I barely survived the first time. Her paintings were still on the walls, pastel sunsets, swirling colors, her childish hand trying to capture beauty even when she was suffering. Her bed was still unmade from the morning she left for the hospital the last time. Her stuffed bear still sat crooked near her pillow. I would have collapsed if Xavier hadn't touched my shoulder gently. We don't have long. I nodded and opened her toy chest. Inside, beneath stuffed animals and coloring books, I found it Leora's art journal. She carried it everywhere. I flipped through page after page of bright drawings until the colors darkened. Pictures of her in bed. Pictures of pills. Pictures of her crying. And then a page that made my heart convulse. A tall woman with yellow hair standing next to Darius. Under it, in small shaky letters, Daddy's friend said they will be happy when I go to heaven. My hands went cold. Xavier whispered, Who is she? I don't know, I breathed. But we're going to find out. We checked the bathroom drawers, then the kitchen cabinets, but the biggest discovery came in the master bedroom. We slipped inside silently, careful not to wake him. His phone was on the nightstand, his usual place. Passcode? I knew it by heart. Leora's birthday. Xavier took it, attaching it to a device that began cloning everything. While he worked, I searched through Darius's dresser. In the bottom drawer, beneath folded sweaters, I found a beneficiary, Darius Benjamin Langston. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. There were also bank statements showing large transfers to an entity called Aurelia Consulting. Thousands of dollars, regular payments, and one transfer to Eloise. 50,000. This is enough to bury him, Xavier whispered. Not yet, I said. We need more. Enough that he can't twist, deny, or escape. Xavier finished cloning the phone. We need to leave. We slipped out the way we came, breath held until we reached the car. Back at his apartment, he uploaded everything. As the files loaded, he frowned. Sierra, you need to see this. He opened a message thread between Darius and a contact, saved as A. The messages made my blood run cold. They talked about the insurance payout. They talked about Leora declining as planned. They talked about getting rid of risks. They talked about a future together. And one line that made my vision blur. Once she's gone, we're free. I closed my eyes, gripping the table until my knuckles whitened. Who is A? I whispered. Xavier clicked into a contact card. Aurelia Wright. CEO. Blonde. Early 40s. The woman in Leora's drawing. Darius's mistress. The woman he planned to run away with after murdering our daughter. A cold, sharp certainty settled inside me. I'm going to destroy them both, I whispered. Not with fists. Not with violence. But with the truth. And with the same precision they used to kill my child. The sun was rising by the time Xavier and I finished reviewing the messages between Darius and Aurelia. Every line felt like a slice across my skin. My husband planning a future with another woman while our daughter was dying. No, while they were killing her. The words blurred, sharpened, blurred again. He wrote this. I whispered, my voice raw. He sat somewhere, maybe in this house, typing these messages while I was begging doctors to save Leora. Xavier's jaw flexed. He's a monster, Sierra. Both of them are. I stared at the screen. There were photos, Darius and Aurelia together in hotel rooms. On business trips he claimed were mandatory, snapshots of their dinners while Leora lay hooked to monitors fighting for her life. Some were time-stamped during days. I remember sitting beside my daughter, holding her hand while she cried. My stomach heaved. I just barely reached the sink before I was retching. Xavier held my hair, silent. When I finally stood again, shaking, eyes swollen, he handed me a glass of water. "We're going to take them down," he said. "But we need everything." I nodded, swallowing hard. "What's next?" "We need to test the medications you photographed," he said. "Confirm they were chemotherapy drugs. Then find anything hidden outside the house. Storage units, safe deposit boxes, whatever Darius thinks will protect him." "Yes," I said. "We're not giving him room to escape." The fire inside me wasn't grief anymore. It wasn't pain. It was purpose, sharp and merciless. That afternoon, while Darius texted me repeatedly, "Where are you? Please come home. I'm worried. Call me Dad." I was at River Point General using my badge to access the toxicology lab. I told the night tech I was processing off-the-record materials for an internal investigation. She didn't ask questions. Hours later, the results confirmed what Eloise wrote. Methotrexate, cyclophosphamide, vincristine, highly potent chemotherapy agents, in dosages that would destroy a healthy child's organs, slow enough to mimic an aggressive blood disorder, fatal over time, the exact pattern of Leora's decline. I stared at the results until tears blurred the words. This wasn't theoretical anymore. This wasn't suspicion. This was evidence, undeniable, cold, scientific. My daughter had been murdered by her father. Xavier and I returned to his apartment, but we weren't even through the door before he said, "Sit down. You need to see this." He dug further into Darius's emails. There were dozens more between him and Aurelia. Coded phrases, instructions, references to moving money offshore. There were also emails to Eloise, written in terms that made my skin crawl. Adjust the dosage. Symptoms not dramatic enough. Make sure she declines steadily. No sudden drops. We need it to look organic. I covered my mouth, barely swallowing back a sob. And then Xavier clicked open an email from Aurelia. Subject, final step, message. After the payout, destroy all communications. Meet at the Crescent Ballroom Gala. After that night, we leave the country. A file was attached, a scanned deed to a property in Belterra Bay, Costa Rica. They were already planning their escape. Their life. Their future. Paid for with my daughter's blood. My breath shook in my lungs. "We can turn everything over to the police," Xavier said quietly. "Right now. They'd arrest him." "No," I whispered. He studied me. "No. They'll get lawyers. They'll twist things. They'll say it's fake. They'll say I'm grieving and unstable. They'll say anything to get out of it. They might even get bail." "And what do you want to do instead?" he asked softly. "I want them to confess," I said, each word slow, deliberate, with their own mouths, recorded, in front of people who matter, in a way that no one can erase or backpedal. And then I want the world to watch the walls close in on them. Xavier's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Okay, then we use their arrogance." "What do you mean?" "They already believe they're untouchable. They think the gala is their victory lap. If we can push them into desperation before that night, they'll implode," I whispered. "They'll turn on each other." Xavier nodded. "Exactly. We spent that night creating a detailed plan, a psychological trap, something that would make each of them believe the other was betraying them, something that would unravel their partnership from the inside until their guilt spilled out. The next morning I went home. Walking through the front door felt like stepping onto a stage. Darius rushed toward me, wrapping me in his arms, burying his face in my hair. "God, Sierra, where were you?" he said. "I thought something happened. You scared me." I forced myself to melt into him, to tremble just enough. I just needed time, I whispered. He kissed my forehead like he hadn't killed our child. Like he wasn't planning to leave me. Like he wasn't a monster wrapped in human skin. I understand, he murmured soothingly. We'll get through this. Together. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. I cried in his arms. I let him comfort me. I played the grieving wife perfectly. And while he stroked my hair with a tenderness that made bile rise in my throat, Xavier monitored Darius's laptop remotely from his apartment, tracking every keystroke, every deleted file, every panicked email. The next day we found it, something huge. A storage unit on the south side of town under a business alias Darius created last year. What do you think is inside? Xavier asked as we drove there. Proof, I whispered. The kind he didn't want even Eloise seeing. We arrived at a dimly lit industrial row of storage units. My stomach knotted as I inserted the key I'd stolen from Darius's desk drawer. The metal door rattled upward, and inside was the real Darius. Boxes stacked neatly, each labeled in his handwriting. Property records, asset transfers, consulting agreements, tax filings, travel plans, financial statements showing transfers between Darius and Aurelia, hundreds of thousands, offshore account numbers, a wire transfer to Eloise marked confidential consulting fee, a second file listing dosages, timelines, and Eloise's initials. I picked up another document, a photocopy of Leora's falsified medical chart, Eloise's updated diagnosis notes, and beneath it, instructions written in Darius's writing. Follow schedule. Keep progression consistent. My jaw trembled violently. Xavier steadied me. This is it, he said softly. This is everything. No, I whispered. We still need their own words. Their panic. Their betrayal. Their collapse. Xavier nodded slowly. Then it's time to pull the strings. We began by sending Darius a fake email from Aurelia's account. We crafted it using her writing style, which Xavier replicated perfectly. I'm getting nervous. The police contacted me. We need to meet. I think we should come clean before this gets worse. Darius's reaction was instant. He began pacing through his office, trying to call her, texting her frantically, messages that went nowhere because we'd blocked his number on her phone. Then we did the opposite, sent Aurelia a fake email from him. I'm keeping the insurance money. Do not contact me again. Within minutes, she slammed her office door and threw a glass at the wall. The camera Xavier hacked into caught everything. The trust between them, already built on lies, began to crack. But we weren't done. Late that night, while Darius slept next to me, I took his unlocked phone and sent a single text to Aurelia. Sierra knows something. After the gala, we take care of her too. I deleted the message from his phone and crawled back into bed, staring at the ceiling while the man who killed our daughter slept peacefully inches away. The next morning, Aurelia called him. Furious, frantic, confused. What message? Darius snapped. I didn't text you. You think I'm stupid, Darius? Someone is playing us. Camille must have left evidence. Maybe someone else has it. Their fear fed into their paranoia. Their paranoia fed into their mistakes. And mistakes would lead them straight into the trap. 2 days before the gala, I visited my mother. I hugged her tightly, then handed her a sealed envelope. If anything happens to me, I whispered, open this and go straight to the police. She held my face in her hands. Sierra, what are you doing? What I should have done months ago, I said softly. And for the first time since Leora died, I felt something close to strength rise in my chest. I wasn't done. They would pay, and the world would watch them fall. The morning of the gala arrived like a slow-moving storm. I had barely slept. Every breath felt like it carried 1,000 splinters. I kept replaying everything. Leora's smile, Darius's lies, Aurelia's cold manipulation, Eloise's terrified apology before she died. The truth lived in my bones now, vibrating with every step I took inside my house. My house. The same rooms where Darius had measured doses, where he had smiled at me while poisoning our child, where he had pretended to grieve while planning a new life with another woman. I moved like a ghost that morning. Darius poured me coffee, touching my back gently, humming under his breath as if he hadn't orchestrated a child's murder. My daughter's murder. I stood there in the kitchen, watching him butter toast, and wondered how many times he had done this, performed normalcy, practiced it, perfected it. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. I forced a tremble into my voice. "Still numb." He nodded sympathetically, leaning in to kiss my forehead. "Tonight will be good for us. Getting out, being around people. The gala will be uplifting." Uplifting. I tasted blood in my mouth from holding back the scream, clawing its way up my throat. After breakfast, he went into his office to prepare for his big night. I slipped outside and called Xavier from my car, keeping my voice low. "Everything's ready on our end." I whispered. "Everything," he said. "The video is set. The audio triggers are ready. The broadcast will override the ballroom screens the moment I send the signal. And the cameras, placed throughout the venue. The media outlets had been tipped anonymously. They'll be rolling before the program even starts." I closed my eyes, exhaling. "Tonight ends everything." "Sierra," his voice softened. "This is justice. For Leora. For Eloise. For you." "I know." We hung up, and I stared at my shaking hands on the steering wheel. Tonight, I would sit beside the man who murdered our daughter. Tonight, I would smile, nod, hold his arm, pretend to support him, right up until the moment the truth ripped the world out from under him. I rehearsed my role. I had to look devastated, broken, fragile. A grieving mother, clinging to her husband. No suspicion. Nothing that would tip him off. If Darius sensed anything, he would run or lash out. When evening arrived, I dressed slowly. The black dress felt like armor. Simple, elegant, somber. Darius looked at me with that same tender expression he'd used to manipulate me for years. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "Thank you for doing this." "I'm proud of you," I lied. "This award means so much." He kissed my forehead again. My skin crawled, but I smiled. We drove to the Crescent Ballroom, a glittering venue downtown with chandeliers bright enough to blind. Cameras flashed. Executives greeted us. Everyone smiled and shook Darius's hand. "Such a tragedy," they whispered to me. "But your husband is so strong." I nodded politely, letting every compliment sear into me like a hot brand. He wasn't strong. He wasn't devoted. He wasn't grieving. He was waiting for the check to clear. Then she entered. Aurelia Wright. Tall, graceful, blonde hair cascading behind her like she was the star of the night. She wore a red gown that shimmered under the lights, beautiful in a cold, soulless way. When she saw me, she forced a sympathetic smile. "Sierra, I'm so sorry for what you've been through." Her voice was sweet, silky, even gentle. Her eyes were calculating. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Darius says you've been incredibly supportive." A tiny flicker of fear crossed her face, barely visible but real. "Good." She already suspected betrayal. "Of course," she said. "He's one of our best." The words carried a double meaning. She was watching him. He was watching her. The cracks were widening. Throughout the night, Aurelia and Darius exchanged tense glances. Their hell had already begun. They didn't know which messages were real. They didn't know if the other was secretly talking to the police. They didn't know who had evidence. Their alliance, the same alliance that killed my daughter, was crumbling from the inside. And I watched every piece break. The program began, speeches about innovation, success, new medical breakthroughs. The crowd applauded. A promotional video played. Then it was time for the award. Aurelia walked on stage, poised, smiling with polished confidence, but her fingers trembled as she held the microphone. "Tonight," she began, "we honor a man whose dedication..." and then the screen behind her flickered. She paused. Darius stiffened beside me. The screen flashed again. Then a photo appeared. Leora, my baby, and then my voice filled the ballroom. Clear, steady, amplified through every speaker. My daughter, Leora, didn't die from illness. She was murdered by the two people standing on this stage. The crowd erupted in whispers. Cameras swung toward the stage. Attendees stood, confused, horrified. Darius grabbed my wrist. Sierra, what did you do? I pulled my hand free. The screen changed again, scanned copies of falsified medical reports, emails, payments, dosage instructions, offshore account statements. Xavier released the files one by one, in perfect sequence, each more damning than the last. The audience was silent. Then Aurelia screamed, "This is fake! This is fake! Turn it off!" She lunged at the control booth, but the technicians shook their heads helplessly. The system was locked. Ladies and gentlemen, my voice continued. The CEO of Wright Pharmaceutical helped poison my daughter for insurance money. And my husband, her lover, gave our child the drugs. People gasped. A woman fainted. Cameras flashed. Security moved, unsure what to do. Darius stepped onto the stage, voice shaking. Everyone, please, this is a misunderstanding. But Xavier wasn't finished. The next audio clip played. Once she's gone, we're free. Darius's voice. Clear. Certain. Another clip. Aurelia. Make sure the symptoms look natural. The ballroom exploded in shock. Then something incredible happened. Something we hoped for, but didn't dare expect. They turned on each other. You told her. Aurelia shrieked. You idiot. You said no one would ever find out. You were supposed to destroy the files. Darius shouted back. This is your fault. You killed Camille, she screamed. You did it to protect yourself. You paid her, he roared. You made her give our kid the poison. Every confession echoed through the speakers. Every lie exposed. Every secret gutted open. Every witness recording. And the media? They were already live-streaming. Police surged into the ballroom as if the universe itself was ready for justice. Darius tried to run. He didn't make it 3 steps. Officers slammed him to the ground, cuffing him while he thrashed, screaming my name like I betrayed him. Aurelia didn't run. She froze, staring at the screen in horror as her empire crumbled behind her. I walked forward slowly. People parted. My heels echoed on the marble floor. Darius looked up at me, red-faced, wild-eyed, pleading. Sierra, please, baby. I knelt to his level. You murdered our daughter. He sobbed, shaking his head violently. You made her suffer every day, I whispered. The world finally knew what had been done to my child. But justice wasn't linear. It wasn't clean. It wasn't swift. It came in waves, slow, painful, relentless. 3 weeks after the gala, I received a call from the county jail. Mrs. Hale, the voice asked. We're calling regarding the inmate, Darius Hale. My heart stopped. What happened? He was involved in an altercation. Another inmate discovered what he was incarcerated for. Mr. Hale sustained multiple injuries. I closed my eyes slowly. Is he alive? Yes, but he'll require long-term medical care. The injuries are significant. I said nothing. The officer continued hesitantly. Sometimes inmates with charges involving children are targeted. I see. Do you want to be notified if there are further updates? Yes. When the call ended, I sat on the edge of my bed and let the silence settle around me. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel guilt. I felt nothing. Just a cold, heavy emptiness. The same emptiness that had lived inside me since the day Leora died. Aurelia's spiral was different. Without her pills, without her status, without her power, she deteriorated rapidly in jail. Withdrawal ravaged her body. Her beauty faded. Her confidence cracked. Her attorneys filed motions claiming mental health crises, but none of it changed the evidence. None of it changed the truth. Neither of them could escape anymore. They had been untouchable for so long. Now the world saw them clearly. Monsters. Calculated, meticulous monsters. But the real reckoning was still ahead. The trial. I spent the months leading up to it preparing, meeting with prosecutors, reviewing evidence, helping investigators track down additional victims of fraudulent diagnoses linked to Aurelia's pharmaceutical program. Some families suspected they'd been given unnecessary treatments. Some children had nearly died. It became bigger than Leora, bigger than me. This wasn't just my story anymore. I was fighting for every child exploited by the powerful, every parent misled, every life manipulated for profit or convenience. Leora's name became a symbol, bright, piercing, unstoppable. Her story lit torches in other broken parents' hands. Her truth struck matches in people who'd been silent for too long. Her memory turned fear into fury. And as the trial approached, I realized something. My daughter was still changing the world. The night before trial, I visited Leora's grave. I brought fresh lavender, the scent she loved, and a painting she'd made of a sunrise. I knelt beside the stone, tracing her name with my fingers. "Tomorrow!" I whispered. They finally faced what they did. A breeze lifted my hair, soft and warm. "I'm not doing this just for you anymore," I said. "I'm doing it for every child who didn't get justice, for every parent who wasn't believed, for every voice that was silenced." I placed my hand flat on the stone. "I miss you every second of every day, but tomorrow begins the end." As I stood, something settled inside me, heavy but solid. Strength, purpose, and a fire that would never go out. The courthouse was cold the morning the trial began. Cold in a way that felt intentional, as if the walls themselves wanted to keep the truth sterile and contained. But nothing could contain the truth anymore. Not after everything that had come to light. The courtroom was full. Journalists, grieving parents, former employees from Aurelia's company, even medical professionals who'd quietly suspected something was wrong, but never imagined it could reach this scale. I sat in the front row beside my mother and Xavier. My hands were clasped tightly in my lap, but inside I felt steady. No trembling, no panic, just purpose. Darius entered first, escorted by 2 deputies. He moved slowly, limping, his posture stiff and contorted from nerve damage inflicted during his altercation in county jail. His right hand shook. His left hand was wrapped. Even from across the room, I could see the chronic pain written in his face. Pain he would carry for the rest of his life. His eyes scanned the courtroom until they landed on me. Not hate, not guilt, not remorse, just confusion, like he still didn't understand how I'd unraveled everything. A man who thought he was smarter than everyone, finally realizing he'd underestimated the one person who knew him best. Then Aurelia entered. She looked like a ghost of the woman she'd been. Pale, gaunt, hair thin from withdrawal and stress. She'd lost the polished confidence she once wore like armor. Now, she kept her gaze low, her hands trembling as she took her seat beside her attorneys. 2 predators, stripped of their power. The judge took his seat. The gavel fell. The trial began. The prosecution laid out every piece of evidence with surgical precision. The emails, the texts, the falsified medical files, the payments, the offshore accounts, the toxicology reports, the surveillance footage Xavier had captured, the lab results Eloise had altered under duress, and the originals she'd hidden. They painted a picture so horrifying the courtroom was silent except for gasps and quiet sobs. But the most devastating testimony came from someone I didn't expect. Dr. Eloise Fraser's younger sister. She walked to the stand trembling but determined. Her voice cracked as she spoke. My sister didn't kill herself. She was terrified. She told me she'd made a terrible mistake helping the Morgans. She said she was going to the police the next morning. She never made it. Please don't let her death be in vain. The courtroom cried with her. Even some jurors wiped their eyes. Then came my turn. I stepped onto the witness stand and felt the weight of every person in the room watching me. But I didn't feel small. I didn't feel afraid. I felt ready. The prosecutor's questions were compassionate but direct. Mrs. Hale, when did you first suspect your daughter wasn't actually sick? When I saw the lab report Dr. Fraser handed me the night she died. And what did that report show? That my daughter's blood work was normal, completely normal, and the note attached. I swallowed, feeling my chest tighten. It said Leora never had a disease, that the medications she was given were toxic chemotherapy drugs, that her father had been slowly poisoning her for months. And what did you do with that information? I ran, I whispered, because I realized the people who killed my daughter were capable of killing anyone who threatened them. Gasps rippled through the room. The prosecutor nodded gently. Thank you, Mrs. Hale. No further questions. Then came the defense. Darius's attorney approached, his eyes sharp. Mrs. Hale, you orchestrated a public spectacle at the Crescent Ballroom, didn't you? I revealed the truth, I said calmly. There's a difference. You manipulated video systems, staged communications, hacked devices. No, I cut in, voice quiet but firm. I found the evidence they tried to bury. I didn't fabricate anything. I exposed what was already there. You're emotional, understandably grief-stricken. Is it possible? No, I said again. Grief didn't create the emails between my husband and his mistress. Grief didn't fake the medical records. Grief didn't wire money. Grief didn't murder my daughter. The attorney hesitated. For a moment, he had nothing to say. I lowered my voice. Grief didn't kill my daughter. They did. The courtroom erupted. The judge slammed his gavel. But the point had been made. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for only 6 hours. When they returned, the room felt electric with anticipation. The 4 women stood. For the charge of first-degree murder of Leora Hale, we find the defendant Darius Hale guilty. A sob escaped someone behind me. For the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. For the charge of insurance fraud, guilty. For the charge of tampering with medical records, guilty. For the charge of murder of Dr. Eloise Fraser, guilty. My breath hitched. My mother squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. The prosecution nodded at me subtly. Justice finally was real. Aurelia's verdict followed. Every charge mirrored Darius's. Every verdict was the same. Guilty. 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 Aurelia collapsed into her chair sobbing. Darius simply stared at the table, hollow, defeated. But I didn't look at them. I looked up at the ceiling, my eyes stinging. Leora, I whispered inside my mind. We did it. Sentencing took place a month later. The judge addressed the court with a voice so heavy it seemed to vibrate through the walls. This case represents one of the most egregious betrayals of medical ethics, parental responsibility, and human decency I have ever seen. He turned to Darius. You murdered your own child for profit. You exploited your position as a father to inflict unimaginable suffering. You will spend the rest of your natural life in prison. Then to Aurelia, you abused your authority as a medical leader. You manipulated systems meant to heal in order to harm. You will also spend your life in prison. The gavel struck. Life without parole. For both of them, no escape, no loopholes, no future, just consequences. After the sentencing, I stepped outside into the sunlight. Cameras flashed. Reporters called my name, but their voices felt distant, blurred. Because in that moment, I finally felt something I hadn't felt since losing my daughter. Air. Like I could breathe again. Xavier appeared at my side, quiet as always. It's over, he said. No, I whispered. It's not over. But the worst part is, he nodded. What will you do now? I inhaled deeply. Build something that keeps other children safe. Something that keeps other parents from being blinded, like I was. Something that makes Leora's life matter in ways none of them ever expected. And that is exactly what I did. 2 years later, Leora's Hope Foundation operates in 14 states, partnering with pediatric units, independent labs, and investigative teams. We help families get second opinions. We audit suspicious diagnoses. We advocate for transparency in pharmaceutical research. We work with lawmakers to pass new protections. We save lives. Children live today because of my daughter. And every time a case is closed, every time a child is protected, every time a corrupt physician is removed from practice, I feel her with me, warm, bright, unbroken. She will never return to me, but her legacy grows bigger every day. I still visit her grave every week. I bring lavender. I bring a new painting. I update her on the lives we've saved. Sometimes I sit beneath the maple tree, watching the sunlight flicker through the branches, and for a moment, the world feels soft again. For a moment, I feel peace. But the mission isn't over, and neither am I. Because my daughter's story didn't end with her death. It began there, and I will spend the rest of my life telling it. Before I go, if you stayed with me through all 6 parts, thank you. Truly. And before I tell another story like this, do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from, so this story reaches more people who need to hear it. Your support keeps these life-changing stories alive.